Hello everyone. My video for today is about sponsor application forms. If you watch my first video, you will find that there is two applications must be submitted together for sponsorship application. There is a sponsor application and there is principal applicant application. So for my video for today, I will talk about the forms related to the sponsor application. So first application form is application to sponsor, sponsorship agreement and undertaking. First, application to sponsor and undertaking. If you are found ineligible to sponsor, indicate whether you want to withdraw your sponsorship, proceed with the application for permanent residency of the principal applicant. So me, I will choose withdraw your sponsorship because if the sponsor is not eligible to be sponsored, so then why to proceed with the permanent residency of the principal applicant? Language preference for correspondence. You choose English or French. It depends on if you speak English, if you prefer French. So you choose the language you want. Me, I will choose English. Is there is a co-signer on this application? So we choose no because we don't have co-signer. Here we fill person you are sponsoring principal applicant information. So we fill family name exactly as shown on passport or travel documents, given names exactly as shown on passport or travel documents. So here there is very important note. Given names, it's not just your first name. Given names, it's your first name, your father name, your grandfather name. It depends how it mentioned on the passport or travel documents, but family name, it's your last name. Date of birth, you mention the date of birth of the principal applicant. The principal applicant is your. Is it a child? Is it common law partner living in Canada? Is it conjugal partner outside Canada? Is it parent? You choose what is the principal applicant related to the sponsor. So we are talking about common law partner living inside Canada. And as you see, guys, if there is no more informations you need to fill in those sections, you see the color change. So this means here there is nothing I can write or I can fill in those sections. But if there is more informations you need to provide, so the color will be like the same, like white here. So you need to fill those sections. Sponsor personal details. The same family name, exactly as shown on your passport or travel documents. Given names, exactly as shown on your passport or travel document. Have you ever used any other name like nicknames? So we choose like no. So you see the color change because we don't have to fill anything here. Sex, we choose is it female, male, unknown, another gender, whatever. Date of birth, place of birth, the country. Status in Canada. So as we said before that the sponsor must be citizen living inside Canada or living outside Canada, but since we are talking about common law partner sponsorship, so the person, the sponsor must be living inside of Canada. And if there is a permanent resident who wants to sponsor his partner or his spouse, so he lives also inside of Canada. So we choose, is the person, the sponsor, Canadian citizen by birth or Canadian citizen by descent or naturalized Canadian citizen, permanent residence. So we choose, let's say, Canadian citizen by birth. So here you see like the color changed, so we don't need to fill those parts. Your current marital status, you choose what is your marital status. So we are talking about common law. If you are married or in a common law relationship, provide the date on which you were married or entered into the common law relationship. So, here a very important thing, like if you are married, so for sure you will provide the date that you got married, but if you are in a common law relationship, you write or you provide the date that you enter into common law relationship, and it must be at least 1 year living together. So any date less than 1 year from the date you submit your application is not eligible. So you have to provide a date that is 1 year from the date you apply for the sponsorship. Like for example, the date of today is 11th of January 2021. So at least the date of entering the common law relationship, it must be 11th of January 2020. So it depends. If it's more, like before like 2019, 18, 17, so you mention the date. Provide the name of your current spouse, common law partner, family name, given names. Have you previously been married or in a common law relationship? So if you have been previously married or in a common law relationship, you say yes. And then you provide the details of your previous spouse, common law partner. If no, then no. As you see, also date of birth for the previous spouse or common law partner, type of relationship, it was marriage or it was partnership, and from which date to which date. But I choose no. Sponsor contact information, current mailing address. So here you need to provide your address or mailing address. So if the government want to send you any like documents, papers, so on this address. Apartment, street number, street name, city, country, etc. So here it's very important. Residential address, same as mailing address. So for sure, we prefer to say yes. If no, you need then to provide your residential address, which is different than your mailing address, but it's better if it's yes. Telephone number, you choose like Canada and you write the number, but here it's important you choose here what type of telephone number you provide. Let's say cellular. Here alternate telephone number, the same like Canada, cellular. Fax number, if you have a fax number you can provide it, but if you don't it's not important. But here it's very important, guys. Email address, you have to be very sure that the email that you provide is accurate and you can receive all notifications, documents, any request from the government on your email. So this email address is very important. Sponsor residency declaration. Are you a Canadian citizen living exclusively outside Canada? So you choose no or yes. Immediately after my spouse, common law, conjugal partner, etc., I intend to live in a Canadian province other than Quebec, the province of Quebec. But in our case, we are talking about someone who is in Canada, so we choose no here. And if you choose yes, you choose where you want to live, because as we mentioned in the first video, if you live in Quebec, you need to apply for two different applications, one application for Canada and one application for Quebec. But if you live outside Quebec, then you apply only for one application for Canada. So here, guys, sponsor eligibility assessment. This part also is very important. Sponsors who reside or intend to reside in Quebec need not complete question 8, 9, 10, or 15. This is only for people who live in Quebec. They don't need to answer those questions. Okay. Are you 18 years of age? Yes, absolutely. Are you a Canadian citizen or permanent resident? It must be yes. Are you sponsoring a member of the family class or a member of the spouse or common law partner in Canada class? So we say here yes, because we are talking about common law partner, but even if you like sponsoring a spouse, you choose yes. Do you reside in Canada and in no other country? We say yes. If you answer yes to question 5, you are sponsoring a spouse, common law, or conjugal partner. You are not eligible to be a sponsor and you should not submit your application. In the 5 years preceding this application, did you become a permanent resident after being sponsored as a spouse or common law or a conjugal partner? So in our case, we say no. If you said yes, then you are not eligible to apply for the sponsorship. If you answer yes to any question from 6 to 15, you may not be eligible to be sponsored. Please refer to the guide for instruction before completing these questions. Have you submitted a previous application in respect of which final decision has not been made for the person being sponsored and their family member? We say yes, we didn't apply for any sponsorship application before. Are you in receipt of social assistance for a reason other than disability? We say yes. As we mentioned in the first video also, it's very important that the sponsor prove that he can support the principal applicant financially. Are you an undischarged, bankrupt, etc.? So we choose no. Have you person you previously sponsored or their family member received social assistance during the validity period of undertaking? We say no. What is undertaking? Undertaking is the period that after the principal applicant got approved as a permanent residence in Canada. So there is like a contract between the sponsor and the principal applicant. It depends on the type of the principal applicant, if it's a partnership or it's a spouse or he is a child. This period that the sponsor is responsible on the principal applicant financially. So for example, in common law partnership, it's 3 years. So undertaking, it's 3 years. So within those 3 years, the sponsor is responsible on the principal applicant financially, and the principal applicant doesn't have to request any financial assistance from the Canadian government. Did you co-sign an undertaking where the sponsored person or his or her family member received social assistance? Again, we need to say no. Have you been ordered to leave Canada? No. Are you late in making required payment, etc.? We say no. Are you currently detained in jail, prison? No. Have you been convicted of sexual offense or serious violent offense against anyone? No. Are you in default of court order to make support payment to your spouse, foreign spouse, common law partner? Let's say no, it depends on your case, but in our case we say no. If you answer to question 16 to 18 yes, see your guide for circumstances under which processing may be suspended. Are you the subject of an application to revoke your Canadian citizen? No. Are you the subject of a report of a disability? No. Have you been charged with an offense under act of punishable by a maximum term of, I don't know, but it looks something, no. So, if you answered yes to question 13, 16, 17, or 18, please provide details including date and place. But for sure, it's better your answers to be no. Okay, so here is the undertaking by sponsor and co-signer, if applicable, for those residing in all provinces except Quebec. So guys, here you need to read this very carefully as sponsor and as principal applicant, because here I will not read in details, but I can give you a summary. So this part is talking about, as I said before, that the sponsor is responsible on the principal applicant for a certain period of time after the principal applicant got approved for the permanent residency. So it depends on what type of a principal applicant. It depends the different, like it varies the duration. So you can read this here, and the sponsor is responsible to provide all the basic needs for the principal applicant, and even within those time, this period, if there was a divorce, if there was a breakup or anything, the sponsor is still responsible on the principal applicant financially until this period is finished. So guys, you must read the details here, very important. You must read everything. So here there is couple of things are very important for the application. First, as you see, there is a sponsor's signature here. There is signature of sponsored person, a principal applicant here, and there is signature of sponsor's spouse or common law partner if cosigner. This is, you can keep it empty because it's not cosigner. So the sponsor sign here, principal applicant sign here, and the date you filled out this form. So you mention the date, it depends, let's say for example this date. So this is the first thing, is very important. Second thing, as you see guys, there is something called validate, and here office use only validated. So this bottom, after you finish filling out all the informations, you click on this validate. So this part show you which part you mentioned was empty or wrong date, or there is something wrong in the application. But if everything is alright and there is no problem, so here you see validated no, but if everything is alright and everything is correct, so validated it must mention yes. So you validated, and then it must show here yes. This is very important. So how to make sure that this validation is okay? This form has 6 pages, but after you do the validation, you will have extra pages with something called barcode. This is very important. This application must have a barcode after you do the validation. So this barcode I will show you, and I will talk about this barcode more in details in another video, because there is different forms, they need to be validated and they generate a barcode. But you need to know that there is validation. The validation must mention yes, and by the end of the form you will see a barcode. I will show how the barcode look like in a different video. So now let's go to the second form. Relationship information and sponsorship evaluation form. If you need more space for any of the questions, use another sheet and write the part and the question number. So guys, this is also very important. Note that for any form, if there is extra information you need to provide for any point in the form, you can print out only the same paper that you need to fill for the extra information, and on the top of the paper you mention the part that you answer and which note, and you can sign and write the date. This is very important, and I will also include this note in the other video. I will talk about very important notes about the forms in the basic guide and the complete guide. So, personal information about the sponsor: family name, given names, date of birth, client ID. Client ID, it depends if he is citizenship or he is permanent resident. Personal information about spouse or partner being sponsored, principal applicant, family name, given names, date of birth, client ID if you know it. So client ID here also for the principal applicant. So for example, if we are talking about common law partner, so the partner, he is here or she is here by a visitor visa or study or work permit. So there is a number on the visa they have. It's ID number for the person. So you have to mention this ID number. Part A, sponsorship evaluation and information about the sponsor to be filled out by the sponsor. Sponsor's employment history. Starting with your current employer, if applicable, give details of all employers you have worked for over the past 5 years. Make sure there is no gaps. You see, guys, this is very important note. If you were unemployed, explain how you supported yourself. If you were self-employed, etc. Use the gross amount before taxes for your monthly salary or income. This is very important, guys. Use the gross amount before taxes for your monthly salary or income. So date, from which date to which date you were working at this place. Employer, you give the information. Occupation, what is your position, and monthly gross salary income. Other sponsorship. Have you sponsored in the past or are you currently sponsoring any other member? So you say yes or no. So in our case we will say no, but if yes, you need to fill here the family name, given name, date of birth of the other principal applicants you are sponsoring. Other financially dependent people. So here, if there is any people depending on you financially, like a child or a previous spouse or previous partner, you can mention this here. Level of education. What is the highest level of education you have completed? So you mention the sponsor, what is his education level. Address history. So here you mention where the sponsor have been lived before, the date, from to, street, city, province, the zip code, and the country. Residence in Canada. Do you live in Canada now? Yes, no. So in our case, we will say yes. But if it's no, you have to mention those informations here. Previous relationship. So if you have been before married or in a common law relationship before, so you need to mention the details of the person, date of birth of the person, family name, given name, length of relationship, from which date to which date, and date of separation or divorce. Consent to disclose. So here, if there is an investigation into marriage fraud about you, do you consent to immigration and the Canada Border Service Agency releasing the result to your spouse or partner? You can choose yes or you can choose no in this point. It will not affect your application, but I prefer to say no. Declaration of a sponsor. So here the sponsor has to sign and mention the date that he fills out the form. Part B, information about the principal applicant to be filled out by the principal applicant. So, before this relationship, was your sponsor related to you in any way? So, yes or no. Let's say no. Before the relationship, I didn't know my partner. So if yes, you need to mention how you know your partner before through a friend, through family's member, whatever. Do you have any relatives living in Canada? So if you have any relatives, aunt, cousin, uncles, whatever, you mention them here. Have you ever been married or in a common law relationship with another person? So if you have been married or in a common law relationship before, you mention yes and you mention the details of the person. If no, you said no. Consent to disclose. If there is an investigation into marriage fraud about you, the same like the sponsor, I prefer to say no, this will not affect your application. And here the principal applicant, signature and the date. Part C. Information about relationship to be filled out by the sponsor and the principal applicant. So here it's more details about the relationship as a couples. When was the first time you met in person? You mention the date and where. Like where? In the mall, in a friend's house, where you met for the first time, online, whatever. Describe the circumstances of your first meeting. So you have to mention what was the circumstances of your first meeting. Like for example, if two people met in the mall, so they mention like we met in the mall, or the guy like approached the girl and talked to her. So you have to give a short summary of how was the first meeting. If you met in a party, you talk about how the meeting happened. So it depends on your story. Did anyone introduce you? So if there is anyone introduce you, like a family member or a friend, you say yes, or if not, no, and you mention who is this person. Did you have any contact before you met in person? So for example, if you met online, so yes, you have contact before meeting in person, so you mention yes. And then here, if yes, give details like who initiated the first contact, date of first contact, was it by the phone, letter, email, social media. So you mention the details if you were talking before meeting. Are you living together now? So if you are common law partner relationship, so for sure you are living now together. But if not, for other cases like conjugal partner or a spouse, if the spouse, they are not living together by now, so you mention no. If yes, how long have you been living together? So if yes, we have to mention for how long they are living together, the date, from which date to which date. If no, explain why. If you are not living together, have you visited each other during the relationship? So if you are conjugal partner relationship or spouse, so you need to mention yes, no, or yes, but for sure it must be yes. And if no, explain why. So it must be yes, because if no, like how can you be in a relationship if you don't visit each other? So if yes, give details. You need to give details, the date that you visited your partner or your spouse, who traveled to visit whom, and the other informations here. What language do you use when you're communicating with each other? If you speak French, speak English, speak other language, you mention this language. How often do you communicate when you are not together, and how? So you mention like every day, every other day, but it must be every day if you are in a relationship. And how, like over texting, messenger, depends on what you use to communicate. Do your close friends, family and children know about your relationship? So you mention yes or no, but if no, explain why. But it's better for sure if it's yes, the family, friends. If yes, give details below. So if yes, you need to mention who is the name of the family members, the friends, the children, if you have children, that they know about the relationship here. If you are married, answer the questions below. If not, go to question 9. So, was your marriage arranged? Yes, no. If yes, describe how the marriage was arranged. You need to give details here. Were there formal ceremonies or events to recognize or celebrate your relationship? So if there is any events like engagement ceremony, traditional ceremony, marriage party, whatever you mention. Yes, if there is, no, if there is not, and if no, explain why. So here, guys, if there is no, for example, in our case, common law partnership, so let's say there is no any ceremony, but you can mention here, guys, that we are planning in the near future that we will do small party with friends and family, something like this, to show the government that you are serious about your relationship. If yes, you need to give details here about the people who attend your ceremony party. Are you either if you pregnant? So if there is the partner pregnant, you mention yes. If no, no. So if there is more information you wish to share to support your relationship. So this space, guys, is very important that you can mention more details about your love story. Like if you are married or in a relationship, so you mention how you met, how the relationship progress, if there is a marriage, if there is how become like common law partner relationship, how you decided to do the sponsorship. You can give a summary on this space about the relationship, and you mention all the information that will support your application. And for this part, because it's for both sponsor and principal applicant, as you see, guys, sponsor signature and the date, principal applicant signature and the date. For this part, only you can fill this part if you use someone to help you for translation, but if not, then it's not applicable. You mention not applicable because you didn't use any someone for the translation. So that's it for this application. So let's move to the third application. So guys, this is the third form for the sponsor application forms, use of a representative. And as I mentioned in my first video, that we are making those videos to help you to not use a representative, which is a lawyer or immigration consultant. So here in this part, you don't need to submit this form because you are not using any representative. So that's it for all the forms you need to submit for the sponsor application. Hope you guys understand and everything is clear for this video. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. And for my next video, I will talk about the principal applicant forms. Thank you.